the tools you're going to need for putting on a waveguide termination. We've got our knife, some butyl it's really nice for getting out the filings inside of the waveguide when you're cutting or after a cut. Ball-teen hammer, about that size, file. The connector, whatever connector you need, an Allen wrench, tin snips, and a hacksaw, and then also the gaskets. This is from a reconnectorized kit, and then your actual connector. This is a pressure window here that you guys won't be dealing with, but sometimes you will be. So yeah, there's your tools. Start with a piece of waveguide. We're going to cut it back like you guys are actually needing to reconnectorize fully a piece of waveguide. So we'll start by cutting it. So that's what doesn't need to be completely flush. As you can see, that's a little bit from it. Okay, here's our cut. It's not completely flush, but yeah, it'll do the job because we are going to make another cut. Another important thing that I forgot to mention is that when you're cutting, you want to at least have it horizontal, if not pointing down if you're on the tower, because you don't want to get those filings inside of that waveguide. Once you do make your cuts, we're going to clean this out, our second cut. So now that we have our first cut, we're going to count back 5 to 7 ribs and or 1 3/4 inches. So we'll start here. We're going to go around that outer jacket nice and easy so that we don't damage anything. Try and get it as straight as possible. Now that we got that cut, go out, and that should just pop up. Alright, now that we have our first cut, the only copper showing here, we're going to put the back end of the connector on. And this should usually fit. Some people say it doesn't, but maybe that's on a different connector. By the way, this is an EW63 connector. So now that we have that on, we'll make sure that we lube up this gasket. This is our first gasket. Make sure it's lubed up with this silicone really nicely. This will come with the kit on the outside and the inside, just for a good seal. Now that will slide over, go all the way back to the outer conductor. Once that bad boy is on, we can put our next piece on, which is just slides around right over on top of that gasket. Around that goes this gasket, this guy. This is kind of a pain, it's tricky. Especially I can imagine on the tower. Okay, now that we have that second piece of the connector on, we're going to slide this back piece up, and it should just fit over nicely. That if you have that gasket nice and lubed, it should fit in right over top of that. Sometimes not perfectly, but we want to get our screws in there. I will connect that back piece with your connector. Next step is going to be putting on the saw guide. Alright, now that we have that back piece on, it's flush, there's no spaces there. Next thing is going to be to get this saw guide on. What's important with that is that to make sure that you get a flush cut, you'll want to screw it in, at least in one place. I think that's all you can do. So that way you don't have to, especially on a tower, that makes it a lot easier. flush cut. Now we will saw. Okay. Get your first cut there, your flush cut. We'll take the saw guide off. Okay. Oh, we want to make sure that all these filings are out of there, which they are not. So, the trick that Ed showed me is just putting some butyl on the end of this flathead. And then just kind of using it to clean out those filings. Just double checking to make sure that all those are out of there. And your butyl. You can see I picked up a few there. Now, next step is to file this edge off. Again, we want it facing down. Kind of clean up that edge. Okay, next step. Every 10 snips, we're going to cut it. Every 1/4 inch. See there. Your instructions will also show some of those basics, like like how far you're going to cut back on the outer jacket, etc. Also about the cutting, it says on here that make sure that your tabs don't extend beyond the grooves, so you can get that other gasket on. That's pretty much it, actually. So yeah, we're going to cut all the way around that outer copper there, flange. You can see that my cut wasn't completely flush, obviously. That comes to show now. So it should look something like that. Unless we do have a tool, I guess recently we've been using some tools for, at least for EW63 I think, that actually can get a factory bend there. But most of the time we won't have that. So now we're going to use our ball-teen hammer. We're just going to tap that back. Okay, so now that we have all of those tabs hammered down with the ball-teen, which feel flush, and you want to make sure that yeah, they don't extend past this little ridge here. Is the main thing. I mean, this is decent. You guys can probably do better than that. But, next part is going to be this last gasket. Going around here. We're going to make sure that we lube it up again. Get a good seal on there. That'll just go around that crease there. Set in there. And last but not least, your top piece of the connector. We'll go on. We'll want to make sure that if this gasket isn't lubed enough, it's not going to seal correctly, and that causes leaks down the road. So make sure we get this on nice and tight. And the way that we're going to tighten this, it's going to be like a car tire. Sorry for getting all this. Alright, so now that we have that last piece of the connector on, we'll tighten this like a car tire. Make sure that it seals really well. Just make sure everything's tight. Also that there's no spaces there, you can see that it's flush.